Please welcome Timm.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I want to talk about doing something different. And so I'm going to be challenging all of us to think about doing something different. And I'm going to share with you what I think is a formula for change, which I think complete is three components. One of which is what Mike has just shared with you, which is message. I'm going to focus my comments mostly on the method part of this formula for change, because I think change, and mull this over with me, consists of at least the messaging element and a method for sharing and organizing that dissemination of that message. And I'm going to focus on the organizational aspect, all of which are part of the movement. All of which are part of the movement. But I want to start by asking you guys a question, kind of getting at where Mike started here a few minutes ago. How many of you are card-carrying, paid Democratic Party members? Okay? How many of you voted for Mary Burke? Okay? How many of you are dissatisfied with the results of that election? There you go. Okay, that poses the challenge that we have, right? We need to do something different if we want a different outcome. And the experience that Wisconsin Grassroots Network brings to this discussion is the experience of organizing, strategic organizing with an intent and a purpose, a work group. Everybody who's on the task force, which is about a dozen or so people, has some area of work that they specialize in. This is a completely voluntary organization. We raise our own money. We're not beholden to any beneficiary. We're not beholden to any party. We are an autonomous political or community education identity. Our primary emphasis is education. And that's why the festival has up to 21 sectionals that focus on educational ideas. So our strategy has been from the beginning to try to find a way to engage more people. That's why we initially created the festival, which brought 150 people together right on the heels of the Obama campaign. I was one of the OFA organizers and spent a couple years in that structure. But I soon found out that the focus of that organization was the presidential agenda, and not that I was disillusioned with President Obama, but that, if you recall, that's when things were really falling apart here in the state of Wisconsin in 2010 and beyond. And I realized right away that Walker was a power politician and was leading a power bloc that was not going to be persuaded by anything but electoral replacement. And so we tried to do our best to replace him, and consequently have been trying to organize at the community level ever since, because the challenge is how to reach out to people who, like Mike says, are politically homeless. It's easy to identify that that's a condition that exists. The question is, what do you do about it? And part of what we believe you do about it is you find new organizational structures. And as Mike talks about creating a new movement, we believe that part of that movement is a new organizational vision. And part of that vision is to engage people in the community where they live and get them to talk to their neighbors and work with their neighbors. Because the current political strategy that we've had for decades, where you bring people together around an election cycle and they dissipate after an election cycle, is not sustainable. That's not a sustainable strategy. I know because I was part of that. I was part of the 2008 presidential strategy. And right after that election, you people who are all, how many of you are OFA people out there? Okay, I'm sure you saw that in 2008, just like I did. Our coordinator, who I love the guy, wonderful young fella, he was gone. He said, I'm not being paid. I'm not going to be paid until June. And so he basically was AWOL. So there was, and at this time, we're having all these problems starting to emerge, at the state level. So how could I stand back and let that happen? Just not pose no challenge to what was going on in the state. That's the problem we have in election cycles. We focus all around the election cycle, and after the cycle's over, everything goes on vacation. Well, we're in such a dire circumstance, I don't think anybody can go on vacation. This is one of our challenges, as we all know. And how we go about dealing with that challenge is also not an easy project. So we have developed several organizational elements that help to address this problem, one of which is we've created the Wisconsin Grassroots Task Force that meets every week except for the holidays, which means we meet 48 times a year and for a couple hours per meeting. That's the working element of the grassroots. It's going to take a lot of work, is what I'm trying to illustrate here, to make the changes that Mike's talking about and that I think all of us in this room would like to see. But we got to strategically focus our energy. And that's what WGN has tried to do. It's developed a couple of training programs to try to bring what we've learned from our years of organizational effort to our friends who want to try to do this work. And one of the ways that we've tried to do this work is in terms of working in the community, of doing a training program of how to set up community grassroots groups. And we've created a number of those around the state, particularly in rural areas. Because as you know, the challenge in Wisconsin is to deal with rural Wisconsin as well as some other areas. But if you look at a map where Mary Burke won, and you look at a map where Tom Barrett won, you're going to see where they lost is a whole big swath of red. Yeah. So we have to figure out how to deal with that. And Wisconsin Grassroots Network has had that as part of their strategic vision. For example, we created a grassroots group in Jackson County, Red County. We created a group in Wisconsin Rapids area, Wood County, red area. And those people are working on electing candidates in their areas, be they mayor, be they school board, be they county board, that they would not get elected had they not been focused and organized. So that's one thing that we have developed as our strategy. But now we've moved on to, we've not abandoned that strategy, but we've moved to a tweak of that strategy, which is when there's a candidate who runs. Now I'll give you an illustration here. 2 years ago, we were up working with a candidate in the 69th Assembly District, and we worked with a candidate who was running for assembly. Well, he basically had no support. But unfortunately, he thought he had a lot of support. He had his daughter. And, you know, it's hard not to have complete confidence in your family. Unfortunately, that's about all the support he had. Consequently, he lost by an enormous margin, and he left nothing on the ground. That was the sad part. He left absolutely nothing on the ground. Now we've worked with some other candidates in the last cycle who, unfortunately, if you look around the areas of the state where we had swing districts, Charlie back there, Charlie Upoff, raise your hand, Charlie, is very acquainted with the issue of swing districts. And we had about 15 districts around the state identified as swing. And we should have been able to win those districts because they were in a small margin. Well, every one of them lost. And you know, part of the strategy was to do the same old, same old. All we need is money and volunteers. And we had a regional meeting up in Eau Claire at the 6th of December, and one of the candidates who came to do a debriefing at that session said he raised $90,000. Now think about that. Jesse, a lot of candidates are in the 10,000 or so category. So just think about that. This guy raised $90,000. Of the $90,000, $65,000 went for mailers. $25,000 went for radio, and he lost. So what I'm telling you is, it's not just money. Mike has been saying that for years. It's more than money. And what we're saying in WGN is part of it is organization. We need to create a new organizational model. And the model that we're starting to create now to advance the ball down the field faster is a regional structure, which means 5 or 6 counties together in an area, coming together and forming a group to work on projects together. This is how we can build our strength, amplify our strength by bringing all the counties in the region and all the grassroots groups of the region. This is the difference. We're going to go beyond just county party structures, because most of the grassroots people who, I saw hands here that weren't signed up as Democratic Party members, who also voted for Mary Burke. There's a tremendous amount of people who supported Mary Burke who weren't necessarily card-carrying Democrats. Well, we need their energy. We need their ideas. We need them to come on and work together in these regions. And this is a vehicle for doing that. Bob, do you want to say a few words about how we bring people together through our networking process? This is one of the tools that we have to offer in the process of working with groups and individuals.
To speak specifically, we have a website, and on that website we've developed an area for work groups. And as work groups develop, that's people that are from different areas can come together and work on, let's say, for instance, election integrity. The other thing that we're working on is working with having letters to the editors coordinated, begin to speak in one voice about the values that are important to us. There's also a messaging campaign for where people do not get much information outside of the mass media. That is signboards where you have a values issue put on the signboards with a website to go to that identifies the specific reason, hits the heart of the people, why your fellow citizens have put this sign up, so that you can see that and find ways to get more information, get the real information behind the issues, and then how to get involved and so on, that you can go on from there. Ways of bringing together allies, like the Move to Amend, or the peace movement, or whatever, to bring it to our groups, that we all begin to work together rather than being separate. So we've got to learn how, and I feel, if we're going to make this change, speak in one voice.